Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Your Number One Fan podcast. I'm your host, Kim Spencer, your number one fan. Episode topics will vary with the ultimate goal of providing the inspiration, encouragement, and tools for you to create your most authentic, happy life. I want this to be your weekly comfort podcast that also gives you a little kick in the butt to live your life to the fullest and not care what anybody says. Thank you for being here. Now let's get into the good stuff. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Your Number One Fan podcast. This is Kim, your host, and today I have Lydia Sigurdson. I actually graduated high school with her. She is a lovely human, and I've seen her doing some things from afar, but right now she is a doctoral candidate of clinical psychology at the University of Southern Mississippi, which is a mouthful, so I have a lot of things written down so I don't missay anything. But she finishes her fifth year of grad school. She just finished, your fifth year of grad school, which is crazy. Good for you. Where she provided therapy and assessments in a community mental health clinic, a juvenile detention center, and an inpatient psychiatric hospital, or multiple hospitals. And now she's doing an intern year back here in Buffalo, which is awesome, at the Buffalo Psychiatric Center. And then that's the last step for her to become a full-on doctor. Her clinical focus include severe and persistent mental illness, at-risk adolescents, and she's just doing all kinds of stuff. So congratulations, Lydia. Seriously, I could go on and on about all the things that you're doing. And so congratulations, and thank you for coming on. I'm really excited because this podcast, is a lot of things, but I think one of the most important is mental health and addressing that and just getting a deeper look at the psychology of everybody. I just feel like, a lot of people think of mental illness or just mental health as something that something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
Or if you talk about mental health, maybe you're trying to get attention or whatever. So I just think it's an important conversation coming from all angles. Somebody who has mental illness, somebody who's working with people with mental illness. So anyways, I'm so excited to talk to you. And before we even get into that, we were kind of talking before the recording about your path to get here where you are. So do you want to just kind of tell us, because I think all of us are on the same type of journey, trying to figure out where we're meant to be. And props to you for making all these changes. But what was that all? What am I trying to say? What was that like?
Yeah. I love the concept of this podcast because I think that we have to make these decisions about who do I want to be? What is the person I want to be? When we are fresh, we are still in adolescence. We are still in a lot of conceptualization, still a kid. And our expectations for teenagers don't match our societal setup anymore. So at 18 years old, I'm German nerd. I was the president of German Honor Society and German Club. So I was I want to do something with languages, international. That's my speed. So I spent my senior year in Germany, and right from there, I went to undergrad in Washington, D.C. for 2 years. And it was one of those things where it's you're trying so hard to find what you're passionate about, and you're okay, everybody around me has made these decisions. Everybody knows what they want to be, and I think this is my thing. So let me just totally attach myself to this identity. And it took a couple years of me being in DC to be this is absolutely not aligned with what I'm trying to do here. In my mind, I was I want to change the world. I want to improve relations with different countries. But then how it played out, I was I'm no politician. This is not at all what I want to do. So I was taking, I had I had an unpaid internship where I was working in an education nonprofit in DC. And I was this is what I really like. I like working in the community. I like kind of closing this gap between helping people who just don't have the same leg up as a lot of other people. So I thought that would translate to an education major. So I came back to Buffalo and started at Buff State as an education major. And that lasted a week. And I was this isn't it either. Um,
Yeah.
I, I don't know how to explain math to small children. That's really hard.
Yeah.
But I was taking a psychology class then, and I was like, that's what I really like is understanding what's actually going on in the brain. And yeah, that kind of fast tracked me into a psychology major. And then it's kind of the same thing. You like attach yourself to this major that you really like, but then all of a sudden at the end you're like, okay, how do I turn this into a career? You know,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
are the next steps? So honestly, it
Mhm.
was like just a really lucky set of circumstances where I had a professor who
Mhm.
like recognized that I was really interested in this, and she was like, you know, you might want to like check out like research, like getting involved in research and maybe going to grad school. So I like fell in love with research. I was like, this is so cool. I can like set up a sneaky experiment to see how people really respond to things so we can like better
Yeah.
understand ourselves. And then I got accepted to grad school because like the grad school process is long and hard also,
Mhm.
where it's like
Yeah.
like apply to places where you think your research interests line up. And I was like, I like working with adolescents. It's such an interesting
Mhm.
time in like developing your identity, and there's just like so much opportunity for change. So if somebody's like going down the
Mhm.
wrong path, like adolescence is a
Mhm.
perfect time to get people down a better path or one that's going to be
Yeah.
satisfying. So that was my research interest at the time, and I applied to 9 different schools across the U.S. I got accepted to a school in southern Mississippi. So 5 years, 5 years ago, I moved down here, and it's been a journey ever since. So now my interests are
Yeah.
still, I love working with teens. I'm like fascinated by identity development and how we can intervene there. But I work at a psychiatric hospital now. So it's people who are committed for treatment, like
Mhm.
legally. And I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's like you see some, it puts things into perspective for you of like
Mhm.
serious and
I can
persistent mental
imagine.
illness. Yeah. So those are
Mhm.
my interests now, and I get to do Buff State, or I'm sorry, Buffalo Psychiatric Center this upcoming year, and then I did the thing. Then
Amazing.
the next stage, yeah.
Yeah. Wow, congratulations. Seriously, I could say that over and over again. I feel
Thank
like I
you.
keep seeing you win awards and stuff too.
Oh, thank you. I feel like it's that's also part of it. It's like we only put our best parts out on social media, so we're only highlighting like the things that we want to show off about ourselves. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
But thank you a lot.
Yeah, of course. Um, so many things you just brought up, like, I wanna talk about, but I think what we can I also wanna mention that I did go to Buff State for a minute too to be a teacher, so I
Nice.
think that education feels like it feels like it can kind of fill the void that we're looking for a lot of things, like, I really wanted to work with kids, I really wanted to make a difference, like, I feel like we kind of had the same type of mindset,
Yeah.
and I just felt like I would be a good teacher, but then similar to you in math, I was like, how am I like it just was a frustrating thought to teach kids how to
Yes.
like read. I
Yes.
was like, "Oh my god." So, yeah, I didn't pursue that much longer. I think I did just 1 semester and then I don't even know what I changed to after that. I think nursing or vice versa. I don't even
Oh
remember,
my god,
but
yeah, so similar. That's so funny. Yeah, like the exact
yeah,
same process. I wonder how many people do that, like at Buff State specifically, because it's known
pro
for being like such a good school
probably.
for teaching. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I've always heard
Yeah,
too, but it's funny because teaching was never in I mean, maybe when I was younger because we aren't really exposed to many things except for, like, teachers
so
and
true.
doctors and
So
stuff.
true. Yeah.
So, I feel like yeah, I just feel like maybe that was something that came to mind, but then I never really thought about it after that, and then, so, like, what you were touching on, like, we're supposed to make this decision at 17 or 18. What do you think would be a better strategy then if you think, it doesn't make sense anymore to do that?
So that's like, oh man. I think you said, and maybe it was even like your first episode where you're like, if I could give any advice, it would be go to a they call it junior college down here, but like
Yeah.
go to a
Okay,
community
yeah.
college and
Mhm.
just like figure out like what's sparking your interest. Like
Right. Mhm.
it used to be way back when in our society that,
Mhm.
after high school, it was kind of like time to get married, time to like set up shop,
Right.
get a house, get a spouse, and
Yeah.
not like that was supposed to be your time for exploration, was like ending at
Mhm.
high school. But now it's
Mhm.
like our young adulthood period. So adolescence technically stops, it's like 12 to 18. So young
Mhm.
adulthood is like 18 until like mid 20s, so 18 to 25. That used to be a period where it's like, okay, you have your family, like you're kind of like laying
Right.
your roots. But now in our society, it's like we have this whole extra period of like exploring what the hell you want
Mhm.
and who you
Mhm.
are, what path you want to follow. But like that
Mhm.
doesn't match up with our expectation of, okay, sign up for a ton
Right.
of loans. You don't really know what money is. What is
Yeah,
$100,000? That's
crazy.
a future problem. But like,
Yeah.
so it's like we're supposed to be using that time to figure out what we really like, but we have this mindset of like, oh, you're supposed to know, and if you don't, there's like some flaw with you. So like we're
Right.
kind of forced into like committing ourselves to a life path really early, and what actually happens is we're kind of figuring ourselves out in that period. And I like
Mhm.
what you mentioned about we're exposed to a lot of teachers, and I think all of us were exposed to teachers who like really made a difference in our lives. So when we're trying to
Mhm.
figure out like, okay, that's something that I would like to do, I'd like to give back.
Mhm.
I I hadn't
Mhm.
thought about it before, but I think what you brought up was an
Yeah.
important point. Where like that's an actually achievable way I think I can give back. But being a
Right.
teacher is
Yeah.
hard and not for all
Oh,
of
yeah.
us, and like
Oh, yeah. I
utmost
mean,
respect to
and I
them.
think I think the so you sent me some things that, you're studying and researching, I should say, and, focusing on. So one of those is like the stages of adolescence and
Yeah,
adulthood. So when you said like go to a junior college, that's great. And I think that does help a lot. But then what about the people? Because you say like you evolve over time, like you
yeah,
said, shifting your identity and
mhm,
stuff. So like it makes sense for us to have these things. Like I feel like it's not even, there's really no right way to do it
yeah,
because you can't really appear to everybody, in my opinion.
mhm,
So I think like, what do you have to say about this, the identity? Does it just happen to all of us? And like a lot of us are going to want to change our job like throughout our life? I feel like there's
yeah.
no right answer. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, you're actually, like, lining out exactly what the current research is saying about it, where
Oh,
we used
oh,
to have
cool.
this. Yeah, no, right on. So we used to have this, like, very, I don't wanna say, like, structured, but, like, kind of cookie cutter idea of you're supposed to, and it's like Erickson's, model of psychosocial development, if anybody's interested.
Okay.
But in Erickson's
Yeah.
model, he basically says that from infancy, you're kind of going through these different identity crises and kind of figuring out how you fit in with the world and how to interact with the world. So your psychological
Mhm.
development and your social development, who you are
Mhm.
to yourself and who you are to other people.
Mhm.
And more recent research has said that even though identity crises typically start in adolescence, they don't end there. It's not like we just have to be
Mhm.
like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in a whirlwind of emotion.
Right.
Like, what do I?"
Right.
And oh, I found
Right.
it. Here we go. There's my path for the rest of my life. More recent research, and it's by a guy. I want to say his name is James Marsha, something like that. He basically said that identity formation is a process that goes on through our whole life. So it's not like we just
Mhm.
are suddenly things click and we found our identity. Our identities are
Mhm.
meant to be forever evolving and shifting and changing. And I think
Mhm.
a big thing that I try to instill in like my adolescent clients is like we have this idea, especially in like high school dynamics, of like if you're trying out different identities or whatever, like you're a fake person. You're like that's
Yes. Right.
you're not being true to yourself. As if we are born with this one identity that's like
Right. Yeah.
already
Yeah.
predetermined, which is just like one of my biggest pieces of advice to adolescents is like try on all the hats that are interesting to you. Like this that is meant to be your time to try out what feels right
Yeah.
and what you like. So Marsha's identity development basically says that there are four stages of development, or I'm sorry, four stages of identity formation, and we are always at all times like navigating between the four for
In
our whole
one.
lives.
Right. Oh, okay.
So the one
Yeah.
is, I should pull up what the actual words are called.